Transmission sending.
It's your wifey's favorite sports show.
With Erica Fox and Austin Perry.
The year is 2007, and Michigan is coming off another successful yet ultimately disappointing season. Lloyd Carr has guided his Wolverines to another year of double-digit wins, but the Maize and Blue dropped their final 2 games of the 06 campaign, including their season finale against Ohio State, which ultimately prevented them from reaching the BCS title game, with Florida sliding into their spot in Glendale, but we'll discuss that some other time. After losing in the Rose Bowl game to USC, Michigan's now senior class is left searching for answers. The group has not won a bowl game since they set foot on campus 3.5 years earlier, and the seat underneath Coach Carr is starting to simmer. Meanwhile, in another corner of the college football world, a dynasty is starting to form. Appalachian State is in the midst of a historic run, coming off back-to-back FCS national championships and gunning for a third. These 2 championship programs are on a collision course, scheduled to play in the first week of the 2007 season. With the benefit of hindsight, 07 was about the only environment in which what was about to take place would ever occur, because this is that time when Appalachian State stunned the nation. As completely bonkers of a year as 2007 would become, it started as innocuously as any other. Perennial powers like USC, Ohio State, and Oklahoma all started off their seasons with convincing wins over undermanned teams like Youngstown State and North Texas. Even defending champion Florida, replacing all conference performers on both sides of the ball, throttled their opening game opponent 49-3. Michigan came into the 2007 season ranked 5th in the country and had national championship aspirations. Their roster was absolutely littered with talent on offense, defense, and special teams. Appalachian State was an afterthought for the Wolverines. With veterans like Mike Hart, Jake Long, and Chad Henne on offense, it was BCS or bust for this group. To give you an idea of just how sure the entire world was that Michigan would win this game, the 2 teams occupied the noon time slot on the Big Ten network. The Wolverines paid App State $400,000 to play them, and Las Vegas didn't even set a betting line for the game, a common occurrence when an FCS team plays an FBS team. Things started pretty much according to the script of a top 5 juggernaut taking on a small school, as Michigan led 14-7 after the first quarter. It all started to go south for the home team as early as the second quarter, when the Mountaineers' dual-threat quarterback Armani Edwards put together a series of long drives to make it 28-14 App State late in the first half. The Wolverines would answer back with a field goal in the waning minutes of the half to make it an 11-point game. As the Maize and Blue trotted off the field and into the locker room, the Michigan faithful sat slack-jawed, stunned at the lackluster performance they had just witnessed. As news of the surprising first half started to trickle across the TV screens of college football viewers nationwide, a game that had been relegated to a 12 o'clock kickoff on the Big Ten network suddenly became the center of the NCAA universe. Things didn't get much better in the second half for Michigan, as the 2 teams continued to trade scoring drives to keep this an 11-point bout. In the dying moments of the third quarter, Michigan's stud running back Mike Hart plunged in from 4 yards out to make it 31-26, with a failed 2-point conversion keeping the Wolverines at bay. After failing to inflict any further damage on the scoreboard, Appalachian State would have to punt the ball back to the Wolverines, and all of a sudden, UM smelled blood in the water. In just one play, Hart would show off his All-American potential with a 54-yard touchdown scamper. The Wolverines failed another 2-point conversion, but would take their first lead since the opening quarter, 32-31. With the entire nation now tuned into this game, the stage had been set for the Appalachian State Mountaineers and Armani Edwards to shake up the landscape of the college football world forever. Edwards and App State marched down the field in under 2 minutes and kicked the go-ahead field goal, and the Wolverines suddenly trailed once more, 34-32. The only problem? App State had left too much time on the clock. Unflappable senior signal caller Chad Henne took over with 26 seconds left in the game and engineered a drive that took Michigan all the way to the 20-yard line. A 37-yard chip shot field goal was all that stood between Michigan and a sigh of relief victory. Michigan was going to escape with a win, and all their goals were still relatively intact. Snap, hold, kick up, kick blocked. Corey Lynch blocked the attempt and App State would recover, running the clock all the way down to 0 and nearly scoring on the return. 109,000 fans in attendance and millions more around the country sat absolutely dumbfounded as an FCS team from tiny Boone, North Carolina waltzed into one of the most storied venues in the nation and knocked off a national championship caliber team. Despite outgaining the Mountaineers by nearly 100 yards of total offense, the Michigan Wolverines watched their season go down the drain on the first Saturday of the college football campaign, a time when most teams are racking up hundreds of yards on inferior opponents and looking ahead to rivalry matchups in the coming weeks. It's easy to look back on this game and see the ramifications of what was to come, but at the time, not one person could foresee both the immediate and long-lasting impacts of this historic upset. By the time the polls were released following Week 1, Michigan had fallen from 5th to completely unranked. What's more, the Appalachian State Mountaineers received a couple of votes in the updated polls, a nearly unprecedented occurrence. Michigan would never recover, 2007 and beyond. The following week, the Wolverines welcomed the Oregon Ducks to Ann Arbor, looking to wash the taste of the previous week out of their mouth. Things wouldn't exactly go according to plan. Oregon and future Heisman darling Dennis Dixon would utterly embarrass the Maize and Blue, as Michigan's hopes of salvaging the season were put on life support. The Wolverines would go on to rattle off 8 straight victories, only to lose their final 2 games, knocking them out of Big Ten title contention and adding a fitting bookend to an unforgettably forgettable season. Legendary Michigan coach Lloyd Carr resigned following the regular season, but in his last gasp as college coach, he would guide his senior class to a Capital One Bowl victory over the heavily favored Florida Gators, their first bowl victory in 5 years, coincidentally also against my beloved Gators. Michigan would hire West Virginia maestro Rich Rodriguez, only to see him fail to live up to expectations in Ann Arbor. Brady Hoke would follow, and despite an 11-win year and a Sugar Bowl victory in his first season, Hoke would be shown the door in similar fashion to Rich Rod. The Wolverines never truly got back to their dominance of the 90s and 2000s, following that loss to App State. As for the Mountaineers, they'd go on to win their 3rd straight FCS national title, cementing their status as a dynasty in the annals of college football. Appalachian State would return to the Big House in 2014 for a rematch with Michigan, but the Wolverines would quell any dreams of another upset, trouncing ASU 52-14. While it was shocking at the time, in retrospect, such a result was all but inevitable in 2007. A year that saw so many upsets that many college football fans still consider it the craziest year in recent memory. It was a season that was home to the first 2-loss national champion in BCS history, and a year that the term "the curse of number 2" was coined. Oh, and Kansas finished in the top 5 too. And all of that madness started with a noon game in Ann Arbor on the Big Ten Network. September 1st, 2007, a date no Michigan, App State, or college football fan will ever forget, because it was that time when Appalachian State stunned a nation. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave the thumbs up if you liked what you saw. Comment down below and tell us what your favorite memory of the 2007 season was. And go check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Appreciate the support.